Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll delve into the extraordinary life of Padre Pio, world-renowned stigmatic.
Father Tom Leger will be along to talk about our multiple selves.
And we'll travel to El Cajon, California, to see just what makes a perfect soul. All that and much more. Hello, I'm Isabel Galvry.
And I'm Father Dave McGowan. To all you fathers out there, happy Father's Day, and welcome to Reel to Reel. The study of the lives of the saints introduces us to individuals who practiced heroic virtue and who frequently were channels of divine favor to many others around them. And sometimes they were the recipients of divine favors themselves.
A very few, like St. Francis, were the recipients of the singular gift known as the stigmata. And in our own day, the saintly Padre Pio received this gift. This is his story.
He was marked with the wounds of Christ, a Franciscan monk known to the world as Padre Pio.
In 1918, he received the stigmata, suddenly, mysteriously, as he said his prayers after Mass.
Witness and friend of Padre Pio, William Carrigan.
And he said spears of light seemed to come from the crucifix, hands, feet, and side. And he found his hands and feet and side pierced.
His brothers in the Capuchin monastery in St. Giovanni Rotondo near Foggia, Italy, were startled. And Rome was worried. Psychology was just making headways. Self-hypnosis was popular. From the Orient, people were learning about the power of mind over body. They watched him closely. But the doctors soon realized nothing was going to heal these wounds.
He appeared to suffer tremendously during the consecration. I was within 10 feet of him, kneeling on the side where I could see his face. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he spoke the words of the consecration. And he would adjust his weight, leaning on the altar a little bit, which indicated that he had difficulty in his feet. And I saw him reach for the chalice at the time of the consecration and jerk his hand back very violently, as if he was unable to pick it up. He would bite off the words of the consecration because they were so hard for him to say. And after the consecration and his own communion, he seemed to lean over, exhausted, on the altar for some minutes.
He first received the stigmata at age 31. The wounds bled slightly and crystallized very rapidly. When Padre Pio later underwent surgery for other unrelated reasons, the surgical incisions healed normally. Required by his superiors to wear fingerless gloves so as not to attract attention, it was only during Mass that his hands were exposed.
I asked him one time, I said, Padre, what do you yourself think of these wounds? And he said, they are very difficult to have. He said, they attract people and they're embarrassing, but I deem it a great privilege to suffer with Christ.
Doubters and skeptics there will always be. But for the thousands who traveled to attend Mass with Padre Pio during his lifetime, he is a saint.
His sanctity is what I emphasize. I do not put much credence on the so-called miraculous events that many writers talk about. I like to speak of them as graces, and that's what Padre Pio spoke of as graces. People went to him to seek, let's call them miracles. Their situation was such that doctors would not help them very much. And they would seek this special miraculous way of changing their condition, whether it be mental or physical. And they, instead of miracles, most of them found credibility. People who came with weak faith, the faith was strengthened. Those who had no faith became imbued with faith. That was a grace, not a miracle.
Those who believe in the authenticity of Padre Pio's stigmata are still patiently waiting for an official declaration of authenticity by the Vatican. However, their wait may be a long one. The Vatican has rigid standards and requirements before they will pronounce a miracle.
But right now, let's take a trip to Baltimore, Maryland for a visit to St. Mary's Seminary, the first seminary established in our country. There we'll see the beauty of the world-renowned Chappelle Basse.
In the midst of a quiet park that was once alive with young men studying for the priesthood sits a quiet little chapel. It is all that's left of the brick and mortar of the original St. Mary's Seminary, the first Roman Catholic seminary in the United States. And although today it's more a place for meditation, there's a sense of history that surrounds St. Mary's Chapel.
And the significance is vital for the Church of Baltimore, but also the United States, because this is the first Roman Catholic seminary in the United States. It also became, early in its history, one of the first Catholic colleges when they built St. Mary's College here and became part of the complex. The little chapel, lower chapel that we are presently in, is the foundation place of 3 religious orders: the Sisters, Daughters of Charity, the Oblate Sisters of Providence, the first black order in the world, and the Immaculate Heart of Mary Sisters. All stem from here. Plus,
Father Joe Bonadio is a Sulpician father and director of St. Mary's Chapel. A history buff, Father Bonadio explains that when this chapel was used by the seminary, the main chapel was reserved for the young men, and the lower chapel, known as Chappelle Basse, was made available to the local people to use as a parish church.
A large colony of people from the West Indies, both black and white people, emigrated here because of a revolution in Haiti. So Cubans, Haitians, Costa Ricans, so on, looked for French-speaking priests. They found these Sulpicians here running the seminary, moved into the area, and it became this lower chapel, their parish church.
The Chappelle Basse holds a significant place in the history of Catholicism in this country. It was here that St. Elizabeth Ann Seton took vows of service to others.
If you ever happen to spend a day in Baltimore, be sure to search out St. Mary's Seminary. It will be time well spent.
We're going to take a short break, but there's more to come, so stay with us.
From the river to the ocean and everywhere in between, the Diocese of Trenton lives in its parishes, people, homes, and schools. And the Monitor newspaper is your way to keep aware of the renewal of the diocese. Lively features, accurate news reports, and columnists with something to say. Read the Monitor to find out what's happening in your church, from around the world, throughout the diocese, in your parish, from the ocean to the river. To subscribe, call area code 609-586-7400.
Turning to God for answers to problems isn't easy, I know. That's why I'm here on radio, to help you understand how to grow and change as God's vision for your life takes shape. Join me as we examine how our personal poverty can be transformed. God has a call for your life, and it can begin when we touch our pain, when we touch what we don't have. God wants to reveal His plan for your life. I'm Dr. Bill Larkin. I'm a Christian psychotherapist. Listen to Breakthrough on these stations every Sunday. God has a breakthrough for you.
When it comes to working with the mentally handicapped, the ultimate goal is mainstreaming the person into society after developing the skills necessary for independent living. The main problem lies in the difference between the mentally handicapped person's chronological age, which could be, for example, 25, and their mental age, which could be the equivalent of a 6-year-old child.
In our next story, we'll travel to El Cajon, California, to visit a facility that has an impressive rate of success with mainstreaming mentally handicapped adults, St. Madeleine Sophie's Training Center.
We all have a handicap, whether it's wearing glasses, whether it's wearing special shoes. Some of us are too short, too tall, too fat, too thin. Every person on earth has a handicap, but I am convinced of one thing: all of us have a perfect soul.
In the past, the developmentally and physically disabled have been sidelined from society, shut out and sheltered from a fulfilling life. At St. Madeleine Sophie's Training Center in El Cajon, California, the old ways of working with the disabled are both challenged and changed. Jean Smith is the center's program director.
We are taking a person who maybe they're extremely low functioning, and we're turning them into a person, not a client, as it were, into a living, breathing, loving person. We are equipping them with as many skills as we can possibly bring out so that they can function in life. Because to function in life brings success, and with success comes happiness.
What we're really trying to do is to make them the whole person that God has created all of us to be, and so therefore...
The executive director of the St. Madeleine Sophie's Training Center is Sister Maxine Kramer.
You know, of educating the entire person, just not the physical part or the intellectual part, but psychologically, spiritually, morally, every angle.
This holistic approach to education is exemplified by the wide range of classes and activities the center offers. Basic Ed teaches fundamental skills needed to function in the normal world. Arts and crafts help develop the students' creative potentials and teach leisure skills. The sharpening of motor skills and keeping in shape are emphasized in physical education. Pre-vocational training prepares students for a supportive work program that allows them to work in the community at jobs like catering and gardening.
Help us to grow.
Spiritual needs are met by religion classes and a weekly devotional service.
Help us to know.
The Sparrows are the center's glee club. Members not only learn about music, but also go into the community to perform at a variety of functions. Two qualities that are taught in every class and stressed throughout the day are acceptance and a positive outlook.
You have to learn how to accept the people the way they are, because being handicapped is one of the most difficult things that God can ever give you. It's a challenge in itself.
Nanette Lamb has attended the center for 9 years.
I've learned since a long time ago that you don't always get what you want. God gives it to you whether you like it or not, and you have to kind of cope with that problem. And a lot of people have this problem, and I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, but I can guarantee you God is the best medicine.
The Sisters of the Sacred Heart knew God was the best medicine when they started a training program for retarded preschool children in 1966. 11 years later, the program changed to serving developmentally disabled adults. Sister Kramer had been teaching normal school children for 20 years when she first learned of the new program for preschoolers.
I was asked if I would like to help with this program. And in those days, if you were a good nun, you said yes, and I was a good nun, so I said yes, not knowing what I was getting into.
Sister Kramer found she had a natural aptitude for working with the disabled.
But I lost my heart to them right from the beginning.
Because she had no prior experience in the field of special education, Sister Kramer was able to develop her own innovative style of working with the handicapped. Unlike institutions that warehouse the disabled, St. Madeleine Sophie's is based on a foundation of respect, dignity, and love.
Love permeates our whole day. Our people know that they're accepted, they're loved, and so therefore they can be themselves. They don't have to come up to a level that's not expected of them or that they can't reach. St. Madeline Sophie School is a family, it's a community.
I want to be able to reach out my hand and say, here, hold my hand, and we can go together and we can learn together. And this is what St. Madeline's all about, is to learn together, to walk together, to even talk together.
I need change for my dollar. Does anyone have change for a dollar? How many quarters?
Another important aspect of the center's training is a personalized approach. Each student has a homeroom whose teacher is his or her personal advocate. Programs and classes are geared to individual needs.
Everyone here has an individualized training plan. Though you may see 15 people go into this classroom, and it may look like there's 3 different tables and there's 3 different things going on, each one has an individualized plan. They are doing a particular part of a math program or a particular part of a story.
6 and 1.
7.
Okay, so you put down the 7. That's right, Michael. You know how to do this.
The programs at St. Madeleine Sophie's have earned praise from educators around the country, but the most enthusiasm comes from the people who attend the center.
I like it here. This is a good environment for me.
I want to become a nun someday, just like Sister Kramer, and I want to be able to help these people who can't help themselves.
We're just like a family.
Oh, I like all of it.
I love it. It's really fun.
From day one, I saw that love just poured out from these people. But I always like to say that what God deprived these people of intellectually, He made up for in their heart.
I don't care if you are in a wheelchair and you're very, very disabled. God never made an imperfect soul.
The work done at centers like St. Madeleine Sophie's and also those in our own area like the CK Center and St. John of God's is very important because everyone, especially the mentally handicapped, deserves a fair chance at life.
We're going to take a short break, but there's more to come.
Because you love your family, now is the time to consider the financial advantages of a Donahue pre-arranged funeral. The caring, sensitive people of the Donahue Funeral Home invite you to discuss with them in the privacy of your home the many advantages of an inflation-protected Donahue pre-arranged funeral. With pre-arrangement, you can fix the cost of a funeral at today's prices permanently and gain peace of mind for yourself and your family. And that's what living is all about.
The House of Charity can be found at work throughout South Jersey, wherever there is suffering and distress. Through its agencies, compassionate care goes to the elderly. The needy receive food and clothing. Special education programs administered to the mentally handicapped. Expectant mothers receive pre- and postnatal care, and medical services are rendered to the ill. Support the House of Charity in South Jersey. Touch someone's life with love.
Have you ever felt like you're suffering from a split personality? Part of you wants to do what is good and right, while another part wants to do something that may not be so nice.
Well, rest assured that you're not alone. In each of us is the potential for multiple personalities. The answer to the problem is working with the true self. Here's Father Tom Legere with more.
Greetings in the Lord. Back in 1976, in the midst of a big spiritual crisis that I was undergoing, I was given some advice by one of my professors out there, Dr. Ewart Cousins. He was a teacher at Fordham University. And he told me there's a big difference between your true self and your false self. Well, at the time, that didn't make any sense to me at all. Probably doesn't make any sense to you either. It seemed like a kind of spiritual schizophrenia. But the fact is, we all have many sub-personalities. Dr. Karen Horney puts it this way. She says, first of all, we have a real self, and that is the self that we are in the mind of God. That is the beautiful part of us. That is perfect. That is Christ within us. That can't be improved on. In addition, we have the actual self that represents the individualized package of healthy and unhealthy tendencies that all of us have inside ourselves. This just means that all of us are unfinished, all of us are in process. In addition, we have the despised self. This is the self of the shoulds and the oughts. This is the self that we love to beat up on. Finally, we have the idealized self. This is the self that we've always dreamed we could be. This is the self that is characterized by delusions of grandeur. This is the Walter Mitty personality within us all. In conversion, we need to turn away from all of those false parts of our personality. That means, first of all, we need to turn away from the idealized self. That needs to go. This Walter Mitty idea of who we are is usually based on a lot of pride and ego run wild. That definitely needs to be repented of and turned away from. Secondly, and this is a little more subtle, we also need to turn away from our despised self. That's a little more subtle because of the fact that this sometimes masquerades as humility when we beat ourselves up. In reality, it's nothing more than another kind of pride. We also need to disidentify from the real self. This is a little trickier because we have perfection inside ourselves. We have Christ within us, but yet we are not totally that reality yet. We have a treasure within our earthen vessels, as the scripture says. Mental and spiritual health only comes, however, when we accept the real self, the self that is. This is the good news of the gospel, that we are loved exactly as we are. When we accept this truth, then we experience a tremendous release of energy and the ability, with God's grace, to be fully human and fully alive.
Thank you, Father. Organ music is still very popular at Mass, and over the past 20 years, we've become accustomed to the sounds of guitars and a more modern music.
Well, times change and everything moves on. If you're just now getting accustomed to the guitars at Mass, hold on to your hats because here comes something new. Sound effects.
Recently, I performed with the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra with about a 100-voice choir, and it was a contemporary Christian artist who came in from Nashville who was performing, and they hired me to play live thunderstorms and strings from one of the keyboards that I'm working with. It was breathtaking. It was just amazing. The sound was just going all the way through me.
David Musial of Orchard Park, New York, has been creating sound effects since the age of 10. He's played music even longer.
Sing a new song unto the Lord.
David is the music director of a Catholic church in Buffalo. Though he likes the traditional music of the church, his real interest is the combining of music and new technology. David uses electronic keyboards and tape equipment to create complex arrangements of Christian songs, a process he calls sound designing. In his basement studio, he alone can do the work of dozens of musicians. Exploring new styles and techniques is a matter of concern for David.
I don't think that we should just fall into one realm just to stay with one form of music, because as the generations change, we're going to lose members of the Catholic faith because the music is just not happening to where they are. My spirituality has a lot to do with the music I play. I find that My most creative music comes when I'm in a very prayerful mood. Sometimes I'll take the Bible and I'll take a passage out of it and I'll write to it. I've got this talent, God gave me this talent, and I want to return it to Him and use it in a way that not many people are using it right now.
Combining technology and faith, David Musial helps spread the gospel message through the medium of music.
Well, I don't know. It'll certainly take some time to get used to that.
Well, there's just enough time left in the show to ask you to let us know what you think of Reel to Reel.
If you've never written us before, take a few minutes and drop us a line or give us a call. You can reach us here at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. That's Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103.
Or call during business hours, 215-668-9842. That's 215-668-9842.
And join us here next week as we travel to Cape May, New Jersey to visit a school with some interesting ideas on education.
We'll also visit a Catholic high school in Washington that has developed a successful program with mainstreamed handicapped children.
And we'll meet Nick Parendo, an artist working with jeweled light.
So be sure to join us again next week. Good night.
Good night. And remember, Jesus is Lord.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
We want you to find out what Catholic Pentecostalism is all about. Hundreds of thousands of copies of the pamphlet, Understanding Charismatic Renewal, have been sold. We would like to send this to you free of charge. We will also send a free 30-day prayer booklet and a list of parishes which sponsor a charismatic prayer group. Just call 215-668-HOPE this week. You will also receive a card for our monthly newsletter.
Many people find retirement isn't as much fun as they thought it would be. Too much time on their hands, too little to do. The Retired Senior Volunteer Program has thousands of opportunities for retired executives, housewives, engineers, teachers, whatever your skills or schedule. RSVP has something to fit anyone's interests. You can do what you want, when you want to do it, and still enjoy your well-earned retirement.
What's your problem? Let's see. Let's figure this out.
You've learned a lot in your life. Share the experience of a lifetime.